Good afternoon, everybody. I decided to do all this today because I've had so many requests from most of you for interviews about this topic, and I thought this was probably the easiest way to dispense with it, at least for the time being, and take questions. And obviously, as things continue to develop, we can continue to address them. But that's why we decided to have this little gaggle. So let me make a few remarks, and then I'm happy to take any of your questions. I think of this city like a big family, a family that I love very much. And as the head of this family, it's my responsibility to be straight with you. Anytime you talk about a tax cut, it sounds great, but you have to read the fine print. This hastily conceived, short-sighted overhaul of how cities are funded will hurt more people than it helps. And who gets hurt? Well, the people who can least afford it and who will receive no benefit from a property tax cut. The nurse whose rent will go up, the teacher whose property insurance skyrockets because, well, we can't build that fire station close to her house like we were going to. The small business owner who loses foot traffic because the park next door had to close. Is like an outsider coming into your kitchen table and demanding that you cut 1/3 of your family budget. Just like that would affect how we can afford a roof over our head or food on the table or a car or medicine. It has a devastating impact on our city. Every time Jacksonville fixes a road, sends out a fire truck, or keeps a library or park open, property taxes pay for it. That's how it was set up. Now the state wants to take that money away with no solutions for services that you rely on every single day. In 24 hours, we're gonna make that decision, and we have no solutions for how you're going to deal with it. Just make a third of your budget go away. This proposed reduction will inevitably result in roads deteriorating, libraries, pools, and parks closing, public safety response times going up, housing affordability worsening, and more homeless on our streets. Those are just the facts. The amendment being sent to voters by the Florida legislature requires property taxes to be spent on public safety, debt, and infrastructure. Remember, our property tax revenue today has barely covered the cost for just police and fire. In the coming months, as we continue to take better care of our police and firefighters as we promised them we would do, those costs will go up considerably. They'll take more of those property taxes. Would you have us not do that? Would the state have us not do that? But the services that fall outside the state's approved list are precisely the ones that have the greatest return on investment for our city. Libraries, parks, public health, literacy, housing and homelessness programs. The result is every dollar saved destroys several dollars in economic value for our citizens. A tax cut that costs a family more in road repairs, housing costs, emergency room visits, or lost economic opportunity is not savings. It's a cost shift. It's a shell game. Ultimately, the cuts we will have to make land the hardest where the need is the greatest. Even Florida Tax Watch has said the proposed homestead tax revisions would increase inequities among Florida taxpayers. It's an increase in the cost of living for our most vulnerable. It's a bait and switch that only benefits about half of our city, but will cost all of us a lot, including those people that benefit. Yesterday, the question was posed. If cities can't do this now, how were they able to do it 6 years ago? How were they functioning 6 years ago? Well, I'll tell you how we were functioning. 6 years ago, police and fire hadn't had a significant raise in years. or the pension benefits that they deserved. In 2020, 74 miles of road were repaved. This year, we're on pace for 108. When we came into office, pools were green and closed. This summer, for a third year in a row, 30 pools are open. 6 years ago, we were demolishing buildings all over downtown, and today we got cranes in the air everywhere. We're doing all this and more with the lowest taxes, our choice. We have purposely kept taxes low, for which we will now be punished. The lowest taxes of any major city in the state of Florida. How? How have we done that? We have done that by answering the following question for every single investment that we make. Does it return more to our citizens than what it costs? What is the return on investment? We have focused on affordability for our citizens from day one, which is what we were brought here to do. When government invests wisely, our citizens receive more value back than the cost of that investment. And our priorities reflect an investment strategy in safety and a healthy and affordable quality of life for our kids and, most importantly, for our future. It's about more than what happens in the next 5 minutes. Road paving today prevents expensive reconstruction in the future. Early literacy investments reduce crime and lead to more productive adults. Telehealth reduces ER costs that lead to higher premiums. Housing investments strengthen economic growth and make life more affordable. Parks, pools, and libraries improve neighborhood value and quality of life. Folks, these are core services for a world-class city. Here's the plain truth. This is not conservative government or being fiscally responsible. It's a Tallahassee takeover. State politicians who won't have to deal with the consequences are taking out the load-bearing wall for our city without having anything there to keep the roof from caving in. It moves all the important decisions about quality of life, your quality of life, away from you to unknown representatives in Tallahassee, all for a power grab. We get lectured often about big government, but that's exactly what this is. Local government is your government closest to the people. I'll wrap with this. Jacksonville has so much momentum right now. You can see it with cranes in the air across downtown. You can touch it, whether that's on a riverfront park playground or the keys to a new home. And you can feel it with a united city that is buzzing about the tangible and significant progress that is being made day after day all around us. I want to keep that momentum going, and I believe that most of our Jacksonville family does too. So we'll continue to do our best to answer every question, to inform, and from there we'll obviously, whatever the voters do, we will roll with that and do what we need to do. So with that, I'll take your questions.
Mayor, if voters were to approve this in November, what message do you think they'd be sending?
Well, here's my concern, Jake. My concern is that a lot of times things sound simple, black and white. I think they know that. They sound really simple. You know, hey, we're gonna save you a bunch of money. When the ultimate result is it doesn't save you a bunch of money. So I think I get your question, I'll answer it, but I guess what I'm saying is what I think my job is to do is make sure that people really do understand the real costs there and the cost to benefit that we have. So my hope is that once we explain all of that, they will not do that. That would be devastating for us, really devastating for them. When I say us, I mean us. But I'm sure that people are hurting, and I've said that repeatedly. It's why we have been focused on affordability, and I suspect that's what they're saying. You know, if you look at the polling, people have said over and over again, they'd rather this legislature address property insurance, which is a much bigger bite of the apple than what we're talking about for most people when we have the cap on property taxes at 3%. But they won't address that. So what they're saying is, you got to do something for us. And look, the bottom line is we here in Jacksonville have been doing that something by making sure that the investments that we make in our city are not only improving quality of life, but ultimately putting more money back into their pockets. It is an investment in the future that will return, gosh, 10, 20-fold. Not in 5 minutes, but you're seeing everything happening around you that shows you that Jacksonville is becoming that city. But what I suspect people are saying is, hey, we're hurting here, and we get that. We are doing everything we can to address that. And that's what we were brought here to do as local officials. We don't need the state doing it for us. No, I'm not looking at that at this point. Now, look, I'm going to sit down with council. We're going to talk about all the, the possible implications, but we have time. If voters were to approve this, it wouldn't affect us till the next fiscal year. But the truth is, as I said, we have a lot of momentum right now, and I don't intend to put the brakes on that. It was already going to be a lean budget year regardless, heavily focused on infrastructure. Because as I've said before, we really believe that's the key to so much in our city, and we've done so much infrastructure-wise so far. That's where most of the money's going to go. But no, we won't at this point, I think, start. Now, I don't know yet what council will do with all the things that we will put in the budget, but it was already going to be a pretty lean budget to begin with for a number of reasons. Look, I have been so intentional about not doing that, about creating that return on investment so we could keep taxes low. And that is my intention and my hope. I can't give you a crystal ball into the future of what will actually happen. A $300 million hit is not a small hit. We'd have to severely cut services, as I've outlined today. Beyond that, we have not gone there yet. But we obviously would. If we had to, we would look at all those possibilities. No, at this point, we have an agreement with the sheriff's office. We have agreement with JSO, which we frankly think is so important to the safety of our city. What you'd be looking at, frankly, more than anything else, is you'd be looking at inability to do things like continue to build fire stations. And as I alluded to in what I was talking about, if we have what's called an ISO rating that we get every year. It's incredibly important to lowering people's property taxes. And that requires us to have fire stations at certain proximity from people's homes. If we can't build those fire stations, then those costs will go up. Those are the types of things we're talking about. There may be some things that have to close. A third of the budget is a lot of the budget. And as I said, currently, our budget barely covers police and fire. So I'm not sure what will happen there, but certainly we're not going to go back on our agreements with our fire and police. Well, in so many ways, as I outlined a number of them in what we're talking about. Look, when we talk about creating free spaces for families to be on the weekends, you've had tens of thousands of families that have come and visited our new riverfront parks, which some people call, frivolous. They're not frivolous. They're a way to keep people engaged and doing things that are helpful and good for their families, as opposed to perhaps getting involved in other things. Same thing with literacy. It's a crime preventer. It is a way to create productive adults that will become economic drivers for our city, as opposed to folks that might not have a very positive future. These are all investments in our kids and in our families and in our city. So I don't think we want to go back to being a city of renderings. I don't think we want to go back to being a city that, that lets its infrastructure fall apart. I think we are a city on the rise that wants to be everything we can possibly be. And you can feel it in the pride of our citizens right now. Everybody wants lower taxes. We want to provide lower taxes and relief for people. That's why we've created 7,000 affordable and attainable housing units. That's why we're focused on providing more affordable health options for people. All those things have follow-on effects. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why I'm talking about, I know for you guys headlines are so much easier, and that's why this sounds so good, right? Headlines are so simple, but I am going to ask our citizens to read beyond the headlines into the meat of the story. And I am here to provide that for people. I'm not going to allow the headlines, if I can possibly help it, to be the only thing that are consumed in this process.
Mayor, I know you always love when I bring up this guy, but Councilman Rory Diamond says that you cut $300 million in the budget by getting rid of funding for NGOs, nonprofits, and cutting all, future city incentives, businesses, development, et cetera.
Sure, if you want to be the city that Rory Diamond imagines, apparently, that just is falling apart at the seams in every way. Hey, at least we'll have police and fire funded, and the garbage may or may not be picked up. I don't know. But at the end of the day, Jake, look, that's not the city that I think most people in this city want. I think people want good quality of life, and you can't do that on the cheap. And yet, we have remained a low-tax city, and we have excelled as a low-tax city. There are ways we can provide relief to people without cutting out the foundation of the house. And frankly, we don't even know all of the unintended consequences at this point. And you know what? Neither do the folks who just passed this bill, because they did it in 24 hours, and it was largely and widely discussed that it would take months or even a year to determine the unintended consequences. And they decided in 24 hours to basically take out the foundation of the house with absolutely no analysis. So they'll have to live with that decision, I suspect, when the roof caves in. But that is that's what we're looking at.
One of the other things I want to ask you about is, what do you make of like the optics that, past incentive deals, including like the city's investment in the stadium, the city's contractually obliged to continue funding those. So you could be looking at a scenario where maybe you are having to make cuts to all these other programs,
Yeah.
but the Jags are kind of still getting, what do you think the public would make of the perception of that?
Listen, I am, as I said, I am very hopeful that in fact, I'm hopeful throughout the state of Florida that people will understand what's happening here and say this may sound like a quick fix and a good fix, but it's the cost doesn't add up. North Dakota put a ballot measure like this on their ballot, and it failed 3-1 once people understood what the consequences were. I think most people want their services, and so that's my answer. Yeah. David, when have I been off the stump since I've been here? I have town halls every few months. It has been my absolute joy to be in this community talking with our residents every few months in town hall meetings. I'll continue that. And certainly this will be a topic of those town hall meetings. I know that cities across this state are talking right now about a campaign to educate the population about what this would really mean. And which is, what has happened, I think what happened in North Dakota, which people finally went, wow, well, this might not be exactly what it's imagined to be. So I suspect that will happen. But I enjoy having that exchange. Look, like I said, I would love it if we could, provide everything that everybody needs, just, with fairy dust and whatever. But that's, we all have to be a part of making our city a great city. And I think that people want that. I really do. And I know also at the same time they're hurting. So we're going to continue to find doors into affordability, which we have been doing since we got here, without, as I said, taking out the foundational wall. I think that's going to be important. But I'm certainly not going to pretend that I know the way this is going to end. I don't. I just know that whatever comes, we'll deal with it. And Jacksonville will continue to be Jacksonville, and we'll make sure that it's the priority to make our city a great city. Look, I don't know. As you suggest, there's so many things that are on the table right now, that we would have to go back and say, where's the money going to come for that? I mean, that is something that I personally believe we really need. And frankly, as an economic development tool, we would love to move that jail off of prime property and actually, have something there that would be a benefit to our community that could help to continue to grow economic development. But like all those things that are in the pipeline, how would we fund them? I don't know the answer to that at this point. I wish I could give you an answer, but it's at this point, it's hard to imagine how we would come up with that money. To delaying the vote? Yeah. Well, it is my understanding of the city charter that and of our role in our city is that we have a independent school board that decides whether or not they want to put things before the voters, like this particular ask. And it is the role of the council, in what I've been told, to simply be in a ministerial and managerial role of just making that request happen. So I don't think council has a role here beyond saying, this is what you want, we'll put it on the ballot. So I don't really understand the debate. All of them. I mean, literally, you're talking about a third of your budget. So basically, if you were just to look at what we have coming in and what's already encumbered through debt, and through public safety and the things that we have to fund, you're looking at a lot of cuts across the board probably, and a lot of things that people are telling us they want. So, yep. But for the long term, how's that work, Jake? If you lose $300 million the first year and then you lose $450 million the second year, I mean, you can't. That's not a way to run your city. So there have to be other solutions, or either we just decide. And I just don't believe this is a city that wants to go backwards. I don't believe that. Okay, thanks everybody.